Global warming is an issue that the world has been facing for years, and it keeps progressively getting worse and worse. Scientists have concurred that it is being caused both by the Earth's natural cycle and also by humans and our excessive burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil. We now emit greenhouse gases so heavily that it has begun and vastly continues to hurt our environment. This includes the increased temperature and melting of the Arctic front, the declining population of polar bears and their harsh living conditions, uncommon and excessive heat waves, and uncontrollable wildfires. Lastly, if this issue continues throughout the century, the change of ecosystems will occur. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about greenhouse gases. The main greenhouse gases emitted by humans include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. This figure shown here gives a detailed account of roughly how much each greenhouse gas can contribute to the environment. Carbon dioxide is going to be contributing the most to the environment. Methane and nitrous oxide and F gases give about 19% to the environment. The rest of that is going to be carbon dioxide out of the 100%. So that leaves about roughly 81% of carbon dioxide in our. This figure displays what the greenhouse gases are used for, with energy supply using the most and wastewater using the least. Energy supply is the largest single source of greenhouse gas emissions. This is the burning of oil, natural gas, and oil for electricity and heat. 2012 was one of the 10 warmest years on record according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as the NOAA. If you look at the picture shown on the screen, it will tell you the average temperatures in 2012 between January and December compared to the temperatures in 1981 and through 2010. The key on the bottom of the picture shows that the dark blue would be -5, which is 5 degrees below the average temperature. Our planet as a whole is becoming warmer, end quote, said Catherine Sullivan, NOAA's administrator. The Arctic and Greenland were most significantly affected by the changes in the climate of 2012. The Arctic has gotten twice as warm as it usually does, which greatly and heavily affected the environment. It is only getting worse as time progresses. These findings are no longer abnormal to scientists. They have become a normal expectation of what is to be expected for the years following, according to Jackie Richter-Menge, a civil engineer for the U.S. Civil Army Corps of Engineers. If you look at the figure shown, it compares the years of 1979 to 2007, looking at the Arctic front. When comparing the two, you can see that there has been a significant decrease in the Arctic front in 2007 as compared to 1979. Nearly, if not half of it has diminished, and that is a result of the high temperatures of the global warming that our Earth is experiencing. The Arctic front and ice caps that form here are in harsh conditions and struggling, also providing bad conditions for polar bears that call the Arctic their home, which is the next topic I'm going to talk about, which is how the effects of global warming are significantly harming the environment of polar bears in the Arctic front. Ever since global warming has begun unraveling its effects on the Earth so fast, polar bears on the Arctic front have begun experiencing changes that were and continue to be detrimental to their way of living and ultimately their lives. A polar bear's natural habitat is on the polar ice caps of the Arctic front, as seen in the picture. In order to survive, they rely on the Arctic front as their place of living as well as their place of feeding, in which they catch their prey, which is the seal. The presence of sea ice is critical to polar bears because it provides the platform from which they hunt the seals they feed on, according to Polar Bears International. Their food source is scarce. After the long process of global warming that continues to go on, a repercussion of the excessive emission of greenhouse gases has caused the Arctic front to melt, which creates a far from ideal living situation for the native polar bear. Polar bears depend on sea ice for several purposes: as a platform from which to hunt and feed upon seals, as a habitat in which to seek mates and breed. The melting of the ice caps is basically the depletion of the polar bear's natural habitat. This causes them not to have access to their prey and a lower rate of their cub survival, loss of access to areas of denning, and ultimately the rapid decline in their population. Female polar bears who live in these conditions do not get the proper nutrition from feeding from their prey of seals and likely end up skinny, making it very difficult for them to have cubs, including a life and death struggle for cubs when they are born because they did not have the proper nutrition when in the womb. Not only are polar bears being affected by the melting Arctic, but it also has an effect on their prey, the seal. With the climate getting warmer and ice caps melting, the seals even lose their normal space to birth, which most often is the ice caps that are depleting. They need ice to stay alive. It is their natural habitat in which they live their lives around. The excessive heat waves that the Arctic is experiencing are the cause of the melting Arctic front, that in turn has a great effect on the environment, its habitat, and inhabitants. Not only has melting occurred, but there has also been a significant increase in the amount of wildfires experienced in the U.S. forests and an increase in the effort it takes to stop them. The climate change that the Earth is experiencing causes wildfires to start easier and quicker, and then causes them to be longer and harder to manage and put out. The American West over the past few decades has had an increase in wildfires and an increase in the amount of forests that they burn. The spark to these wildfires are higher temperatures, drier conditions, and greater number of lightning strikes that often spark fire. In 2007 alone, the government spent about $3 billion fighting wildfires, and today the fire risk is greater. The figure shown is referring to years 1970 through 2000. Figure A describes the temperature and wildfire frequency from spring through summer. Figure B shows the timing of the spring snowmelt and the duration of the melting in days. And Figure C examines the wildfire season length in days. All three figures show that these have increased over the past 4 decades and are continuing to increase. All of these issues affecting our environment are ultimately causing our ecosystems to change. For example, the warmer temperatures could cause animals to migrate to a different location where the living conditions are more suitable to their needs. With sea levels rising from climate change, the risk of freshwater sources mixing with saltwater sources is a risk and can cause species to relocate or die. The ecological change can cause an increase in disease, pathogens, and parasites. For example, the oyster parasite, Perkinus marinus, could potentially cause a large die-off because it has extended its territory roughly 300 miles from the Chesapeake Bay to Maine due to above average winter temperatures. Extinction risks also increase with the change of an ecosystem. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change stated that 20 to 30% of plants and animals evaluated in climate change studies are at risk of extinction if temperatures get as high as they are predicted to in the next century. Climate change is being felt where people live and by many species, said geoscientist Michael Oppenheimer of Princeton University. Some changes are making life harder. This is because they will now have to adapt to the new environment, changes in temperature, changes in populations of animals, and changes in habitats.